So welcome everybody. Thrilled to have you all joining us live. And for those of you who are watching the recording, so glad that you decided to go into our video library. My name is Rachel Justice, and along with my partner Jillian Levinson, we run the Woman to Woman Gynecologic Cancer Support Program. Thrilled that everyone is here today. Clearly, the fact that we have such a hearty audience shows that sleep is a subject that, is something everybody needs assistance and help with, help included. And we are so lucky to have the incredible and amazing Emma Aronzel leading us in a 3-session series. This is session number 2 of the 3-session series. If you cannot attend all of them live, please don't worry. They will all 3 be in our video library. You can watch them. And the beauty is that the hypnosis session that she will be doing at the end will be there, so you can go back and you can watch and listen for when you actually need some in the moment help with your sleep situation. I am going to mute myself and turn over to Emma, and we will be in her capable hands for the next hour.
Awesome. Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. I'm so grateful you're here joining me. As always, we have a lot to cover today, and specifically, we're going to be talking about different tools you can use to improve your sleep. And I'm just going to move this. Can you guys see my screen okay? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. All righty. Well, here's what's on our agenda today. So we're going to be building off of last week and talking about how you can use things like your circadian rhythm to improve your sleep, how you can decrease arousal, that kind of racing thought, that, awake mind in the middle of the night, how you can decrease that sort of patterning, and how you can use hypnosis to improve your sleep. Now, I do want to make a few things clear before we begin. One, we aren't going to be covering medications. This is a conversation to have with your doctor about whether you should keep doing yours, whether you should add some to your regimen. That's really not what we're going to be talking about today. Additionally, please speak with your physician before instituting any of these changes, especially if you have things like mobility issues or certain mental health issues. It's always good to keep your physician in the loop when you're making any changes. And lastly, this content was prepared for those with insomnia in mind. If you have other sleep struggles like narcolepsy, again, that'll be something better to talk with your physician about. But if you don't have insomnia, you just want to improve your sleep, the options here are all things that you can consider. Okay? And I see that we have a hand raised. Zoe, do you want to come off mute and ask a question? Or if it was an accident, feel free.
I'm sorry, my hand was just sitting there.
Got you. All righty. Well, for those who are new this week, hello, my name is Emma. I am a certified hypnotist who helps people with a wide variety of things, but what matters for this next hour or so is that I help people improve their sleep. And on the whole, I study neuroscience. I find the brain very fascinating, and I'm really passionate about allowing you to use your brain to live happier, healthier lives, and in this case, get better sleep. If you guys just give me one moment, I'm having an issue with the Zoom. Cannot see anybody, so I'm gonna quickly exit out and restart this screen share. Oh, here we go. Perfect. All righty. Sorry about that. Perfect. Here we go. I couldn't see any of you guys. I was like, where did everybody go? All righty. Now let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so I want to kick us off by talking about a study that they did many moons ago, where they wanted to see what would happen if they got a group of normal sleepers, they got a group of people with insomnia, and they wanted to see what would happen if they had normal sleepers basically walk a mile in the shoes of people with insomnia. So they brought in the group of people with insomnia, they had them sleep at a sleep lab for a week, and they tracked things like how long it took them to fall asleep, how long they were up in the night, when they woke up, basically their overall sleeping pattern for the week. Now, each person with insomnia was matched up with one of the normal sleepers. Then when the normal sleepers came into the sleep lab, they basically were forced to sleep in the same pattern as those with insomnia. So they were given the same bedtime. They weren't allowed to fall asleep until the same time as the folks with insomnia. They were woken up the same number of times in the night for the same duration, and then finally again at that last time in the morning. So basically, these normal sleepers got to experience what these folks with insomnia were experiencing for a full week. Now, here's what the researchers found. So to start, the quote unquote normal sleepers didn't have much tension about the whole situation, right? They weren't necessarily annoyed or angry about their lack of sleep. They knew it was part of a study. Interestingly, they also overestimated how well they slept. They thought that they slept more and better than they actually did. And the last thing that's going to be really key to how we're setting up this workshop is that they had increased sleepiness. So they weren't getting their normal amount of sleep. So the next day, they felt sleepy, they felt drowsy, they felt ready to fall asleep at any moment. And now, importantly, this idea of sleepiness in this case is literally your eyes are closing, your head is bobbing, you can't focus, your body just wants you to take a nap in that moment. That's very different from fatigue, which is what the people with insomnia were experiencing. They were exhausted, they were tired, but frustratingly, there wasn't necessarily that desire to sleep where their body was ready, their head was bobbing, all of that kind of stuff. They didn't have sleepiness. What the people with insomnia did have was higher tension, right? They're living day to day with this difficulty sleeping. So there is more frustration, there's more anger, annoyance, all of that. But interestingly, and this is a theme we'll see throughout the workshop, there was an underestimation of how much they slept and how well they slept, at least by the metrics that the researchers recorded. So they assumed and had perceived that they slept less than they actually did, which is very interesting. And now I want to point out two key differences in what basically the researchers concluded from this. One is that the normal sleepers were suffering from sleep deprivation. Let's say they normally got 8 hours during this experience, they were getting 5 hours. And the next day, they were sleepy. Their body was trying to catch up, so they felt that readiness to fall asleep at any moment. People with insomnia were not experiencing the same. They were experiencing fatigue. Even though they also got that 5 hours, it's something their body was more accustomed to and wasn't quite ready to put them into that sleepy state. Now, in this case, fatigue is that feeling of exhaustion, which is related to their sleeping patterns, right? Because they're also experiencing it chronically, not just for 1 week. It's also related to their brain activity, circadian rhythm, and hyperarousal. That's really what we're going to be talking about today, because the issue was just sleepiness. Then the solution to that is going to sleep, taking a nap, or waiting it out if you're able to safely do so. That's really as far as we get with that tool if you're genuinely feeling sleepy. And if you're feeling sleepy constantly throughout the day, that could be a symptom of narcolepsy, something like that. And that's a good thing to speak with your physician about. But if you're feeling fatigue all the time, you're feeling tired, but not necessarily sleepy, potentially due to poor sleep the night before, then you are in luck that you are here because that is what we're really talking about today. So we're going to start with the first part of that and flash back to the circadian rhythm, which we talked about last week. Now, as a quick refresher, the circadian rhythm is a 24-ish hour cycle that our body functions on day to day. It controls all of our different bodily functions, including our sleep-wake cycle. Here's an example of what it might look like. And really, we want to hack your circadian rhythm to improve your sleep. So here is the first step of how we can do that. First step is understanding what is your circadian rhythm? What is your sleep-wake cycle looking like right now? You understand that by beginning to keep a sleep log. And this is a diary of how long and how well you slept. It can look like this, pen and paper. It can be done in an app. I'll give you some recommendations for those in a few moments. But ultimately, this helps you get an accurate reading of your sleep patterns. And this is really important for curbing any misperceptions of sleep. What can often happen with folks with insomnia is in a certain week, maybe there were 2 or 3 days where they got anywhere from 2 to 4 hours to sleep. They slept really poorly. Maybe on the other days, they got between 5 and 8, more of a normal amount of sleep, but understandably, what sticks in the memory is those days where you got 2 to 4 hours, where you barely got any rest. What we want to do with the sleep log is map out what sleep you're actually getting night to night so that you have a clearer picture on the whole. Now, additionally, the sleep log helps you outline what first changes you should make to your sleep schedule in order to use your circadian rhythm to your benefit. One other thing I just want to say about all of these tips as we go through, not all of them may be applicable to you. I encourage you to experiment with these to understand what might be best for you, depending on how poor your sleep is. But I just want to say this is kind of kept in mind. I know I mentioned this in the beginning. These recommendations are provided with kind of the worst case scenario in mind, but if you are struggling with sleep, these are all great things to do. So anyways, sleep log. Why does it matter? So when it comes to insomnia or just like chronically not getting great sleep, it's partially driven by that frustration, by that anger, all of that kind of stuff about how difficult it can be to sleep. So thoughts like these that I have on the screen can make it harder to fall asleep. Can create some of this like evening thoughts racing, frustration kind of cycles and patterns that we can fall into. And some of this is fueled by the misperceptions of how much you're sleeping. If the assumption is you're always sleeping 3 hours a night, when in reality, maybe you're sleeping 5 to 7 on average, then having that data from the sleep log can help you track it. Or maybe you find you are only sleeping 3 hours every night, and it's even more impetus to keep working on this, right? So we just want to give you consistent data of your own sleep perceptions over time. And now a question to this might be, well, can I just use a sleep tracker, right? Maybe you have a Fitbit, maybe you have an Apple Watch, maybe you're fancy and you have one of those Aura rings. I think those are cool, but I don't have any of them. But anywho, the answer to this kind of depends. It depends on what your sleep is currently night and ultimately how the sleep tracker makes you feel. So I do want to note sleep trackers are relatively new technology. They aren't always going to be completely accurate or capture your sleep patterns as well as your own sense of how you slept the night before really does. So to answer the question of whether you should use a sleep tracker, I have kind of a quick and dirty three-pronged approach. So the first is if you more or less, like your sleep is fine, you're curious, you're excited to see what it says in the morning. If it says that you don't get, great sleep the night before, if that doesn't really bother you, then sure, go ahead, use the sleep tracker. There's no harm in it. If your physician recommends that you use it, of course, absolutely, keep on using it. However, if using a sleep tracker is giving you anxiety, if it's making you feel worse about your sleep, if it's fueling those spirals about how hard it is to sleep every night, then a sleep tracker might not be the best thing for you. And again, this is not talking about a sleep log, like a diary that you would write out. I'm talking about, something that's, you're wearing on your wrist or your finger, anything like that. If it's kind of fueling these negative thoughts about your sleep, then a sleep tracker probably isn't going to be the best case for you. And now I have the physician recommended in yellow only because if you find that you're using one because your physician recommended it, but it's been giving you a lot of stress, a lot of rumination, making you angry in the mornings when you look at your results, talk to your physician about that. See if there's anything else they'd recommend, if they have coping mechanisms they'd like you to use, anything like that. That's a great thing to talk to your physician about. Okay? So when it comes to keeping a sleep log, if you're really struggling with your sleep, this is the first thing that you really need to start with. If you are a little more tech savvy, you want to do it in your phone, you can do it with an app. One that I found consistently recommended is the Consensus Sleep Diary app. It's available at this website. And then there's also a pen and paper version that you can see here. If you'd rather just like print out 2 sheets and track 2 weeks, you can access that here. I'm going to send both in the chat. And as you guys know, if you've been here before, normally at the end of the series, I create like a document with all the links I share and all the recommendations. You'll have that from me next week, and that'll include these links. So the first, a sleep log. Now, with that data from the sleep log, your next big step, especially if you're really struggling with your sleep, is to practice something called sleep consolidation. And the idea with sleep consolidation is that you're minimizing your time in bed so that the majority of your time in bed is spent sleeping. It's not necessarily spent watching TV. It's not necessarily spent struggling to fall asleep. We really want you to be in bed sleeping. This does a few things. It helps your brain associate your bed with sleep. It's the place where you do that one thing. And it also helps you take full advantage of your sleep pressure, which is something we talked about last week, where basically the longer you're awake through the day, the more this molecule called adenosine builds up in your brain. As it does that, it increases your desire to fall asleep and your sleepiness, right? And we want to take full advantage of that. So let's walk through what this might look like. So let's say that this is a normal night for you. Around 10 p.m., you get in bed, maybe for about an hour, you watch some TV, click off the TV at 11 p.m., and then you try to start falling asleep. Maybe it takes you about an hour of tossing and turning to finally fall asleep at midnight. 5:30, you open your eyes, you feel yourself awaken. Maybe you're a little annoyed, you woke up earlier than you wanted to. So you toss and turn, and then at 7 a.m., you actually get out of bed. So there's a few problems with this sleep pattern that can make it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep at night. One is there's a lot of time spent in bed trying to fall asleep. And if for you, trying to fall asleep is consistently a frustrating experience that is coupled with thoughts of, ugh, why is sleep so hard? And it starts a whole sort of thought spiral. This can also override your sleep pressure. Any desire to fall asleep can kind of get kicked out the door because instead of trying to fall asleep, now your brain is on full blast, kind of going in these stress cycles, right? So that's in the evening. And then in the morning, we're again doubling down on having this time where your time spent in bed is tossing and turning rather than just sleeping. And also, with getting up later, there's less time to create sleep drive or sleep pressure. So the earlier you get up, the sooner that adenosine, that molecule starts building up in your brain and creating the feeling of sleepiness for the next night. So here's what we would do in order to consolidate your sleep or consolidate your time in bed. We would really just close off either end of your schedule every night. We want to give you a regular sleep time and a regular rise time. And maybe every night, if you read, if you watch TV, it's ideal if you go do that somewhere else in the home, if that's possible for you. If that's not, it's okay. But really trying to go to sleep closer to a time that you normally fall asleep, if you have one, or closer to the time that you actually start to feel sleepy, when you actually start to feel that desire to fall asleep. You'll want to regiment this normal sleep time for each night. Then if the wake up time is typically 5:30, you want to set that as your normal rise time. And the best case scenario is that when you wake up for the final time in the morning, let's say it's 5:30, 6 a.m., that is really when you want to get up for the day. So this is a bit of a generous 30-minute window to just kind of sit in bed in the morning. But really, a lot of the, insomnia and sleep researchers recommend that you get up, expose yourself to light to really kickstart your circadian rhythm, your wake cycle for the day. So here is a bit of why this matters. This gives you a predictable sleep time for your circadian rhythm, predictable wake time. When you get up earlier, it gives you a whole extra hour and a half to create more sleep drive, to create more sleep pressure for the next evening. And when you get in bed later, there's less time to spend tossing and turning if and when your body becomes more accustomed to falling asleep at the same time. Now, I know that this might sound kind of simple or in some ways almost frustrating as advice because it's like, well, if it was so simple to fall asleep and wake up the same times every day, then I wouldn't have this issue in the first place. And I want to say, I totally hear you. And a lot of the time, people get stuck in cycles of insomnia because it can be almost feast and famine with sleeping. One night you don't get a lot of sleep, the next night you try to go to sleep really early, and maybe you do get better sleep, but it gets really inconsistent with how much sleep you're getting every night. This is not great for, of course, the quantity of sleep, but it's also not good for your quality of sleep. Research has shown time and time again that, getting 8 hours one night, 4 hours the next, and really going up and down consistently and chronically is not good for your sleep. So we want to better regiment your sleep cycles if, it's something that you're struggling with. So to identify the best times for you with sleep consolidation, Ideally, you'd use your sleep log data. You'd have that for 1 to 2 weeks. And you'd first identify, do you have a natural wake up time, right? Is it, I know for me, I typically wake up around 7:15 every day without an alarm. If you have that, great. If you don't have that, that's completely okay too. The rise time you create for every day gets to be a realistic latest time you can wake up. So if your dog needs to be fed at 7:45 every morning, then wake up around 7:30 every day, right? So you want to give give yourself more of that time in the morning. And then with your sleep log data, you also want to see, what are you averaging per night sleeping, right? As long as that number, or you'll take whatever that number is, add about 30 minutes to it, for time to fall asleep, time to wake up. And you'll count backwards from your rise time, whatever that average number is. So let's say you average 6 hours, and even if that average is, again, you're one of those people who flip-flops between like a 3-hour night and an 8-hour night, you want to take the average, and then count backwards from your wake up time. So if my wake up time is typically going to be 6 a.m., I'm going to set 6 a.m. as my rise time. And if I'm averaging 6 hours of sleep per night, I'll count 6 hours back, add 30 minutes. That's going to be 6.5 hours, which will put me at 11:30 as my sleep time. That will be the time that I get into bed. And the goal here, again, is to get to 85 to 95% of your time in bed to be spent sleeping. And I do want to emphasize here that this is something research has shown time and time again to be helpful. So a 2022 study showed that sleep consolidation using this practice increased the sleepiness, the readiness to go to bed at night, and decreased arousal, that, time spent awake at night, feeling awake at night, all of that. So I'm about to talk about if you're waking up in the middle of the night, but I do want to pause here. Does anyone have any questions on that? Let me get a sip of water. Okay, great. I feel like one of the natural next questions to this is like, well, okay, yeah, sure, I can go to bed later, get in bed, an hour and a half later, but, what if I'm always waking up in the middle of the night and I can't fall back asleep? Shouldn't I be in bed longer so I can, get sleep if I have the chance? The answer, honestly, is no. Again, we want to retrain your circadian rhythm so that you have a predictable sleep and wake time. But also, here's what you should do instead if you find that you're constantly waking up and can't fall back asleep. So if it's a situation where, you know that typically you get up once or twice, maybe more in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, but most of the time you can get back into bed and fall asleep, even if it takes you a while to fall back asleep, you generally can. If that's the case, then I want you to stay in bed and wait it out, wait for yourself to fall asleep. However, if it's one of those nights where you wake up at 3 a.m., your mind starts racing, and you can just tell that there's no way I'm falling back asleep tonight. I'm going to be up until 6 a.m. when I'd otherwise get up. If that's the case, I actually want you to get out of bed and go do something that you enjoy. This can be reading, it can be watching TV, it can be painting, something that you genuinely like doing. And ideally, you'll do this until the desire to sleep returns. But if you find that it doesn't, this is actually not necessarily a good thing, but it means your time has been better spent. If you had the choice of either laying in bed, tossing and turning, ruminating on how frustrated you are that you can't sleep, or if you had the option to get up and read your favorite book or binge watch a little bit of your favorite TV show, I actually want you to do the latter. And this is in part because what we're working on doing here is undoing conditioned arousal. Conditioned arousal is basically when you spend so much time consistently in your bed, maybe at 3 a.m., right? Always, ruminating, feeling frustrated, feeling angry that you can't fall asleep, can get to the point where your brain learns to associate your bed as a place where you spend your time struggling to fall asleep, or it learns that, oh, at 3 a.m., that's when I wake up and that's when I think about the things that stress me out. Over time, your brain will learn these patterns. It can even weave it into the circadian rhythm. We want to undo that patterning and give yourself a new activity to focus on. Maybe it's reading, maybe it's watching TV, whatever it may be. We want to undo this idea that your bed is the place where you spend your time struggling to fall asleep. And in her book, Hello Sleep, which I highly, highly recommend if you're struggling with insomnia, I have it here. Dr. Jade Wu sums it up really well, especially if you don't necessarily have trouble falling asleep, but it's those middle of the night thoughts that are racing that keep you up. Conditioned arousal is probably what's happening, and that's actually going to flow us into our part 2, where we're talking about arousal, this feeling of why am I wide awake in the middle of the night? To do that, I'm going to talk about another study. Before I do that, anyone have any questions here? Okay, let's jump in. So in this study, they also got a group of normal sleepers, and they got a group of people with insomnia. They wanted to track what their sleep was like through the night. So they wanted to track how long they slept, how many times they woke up, all that kind of stuff. And then they also wanted to look at what was their brain doing in sleep. They're looking at brain metabolism specifically, which is how much sugar your brain eats up in the night because of how hard it's working, right? It's glucose usage. What they found was really interesting. First, they found that people with insomnia and the normal sleepers actually slept similarly. They had a similar time asleep, similar time to fall asleep. It was slightly longer for people with insomnia, but on average, only by 4 minutes. The proportion of sleep in REM versus non-REM sleep was also similar. Now, if you have insomnia, that might feel kind of shocking and almost like offensive to your experience that your sleep is apparently like a normal person's. I want to say, obviously, there are differences. We're about to talk about some. And, we could also say, well, maybe it's because the people with insomnia, they weren't in their bed. They were in a different bed. They were in a different scenario, maybe where sleep came easier. We don't necessarily know, but we did see one key difference, which can help explain why people with insomnia have so much more fatigue. So the normal sleepers had normal glucose usage, normal brain metabolism in the night and during the day. So at night it was lower, during the day it was higher, but it followed a normal pattern. This was markedly different from the people with insomnia. In the nighttime, the people with insomnia had a higher brain metabolism. In other words, their brain was working harder as they sleep. And it was also working harder during the day. It had a higher glucose usage. And it's theorized by these researchers that is part of the reason why people with insomnia, one, might feel like they didn't get any sleep when in fact they did get some, and also why there's so much more fatigue at night during the day that can feel inescapable, because the brain is just working overtime because of this concept called hyperarousal. And that brings us into part 2. So in people who struggle to sleep, we have this phenomena of hyperarousal. It can override sleep pressure. It can override your desire to fall asleep and decrease your overall quality of sleep. Hyperarousal is why people with insomnia can swear up and down, I did not sleep at all last night, but then their partner says, but I heard you snoring for an hour. I know you slept, right? For people with insomnia, it can feel like you're awake when you're actually sleeping because of how your brain is functioning differently. It's really fascinating. This was, to me, the most interesting thing I found in my research. And it can be caused by a lot of things. It can be caused by linking your bed to no sleep, conditioned arousal, as we discussed. It can be caused by circadian confusion, what I talked about earlier, of kind of feast and famine with sleep, your body not having set sleep and wake times. It can be caused by stress, racing thoughts that easily get hooked onto and just spin you around and around and around. Now, there's some other things that can be caused by hormonal changes, medications, stages in life, things like that. We're not going to cover those today. If you are interested in those, I do highly recommend. This book is really great, Hello Sleep. Another one, a little older, that's great. It's called The Promise of Sleep. Again, I'll put all these recommendations in the document I provide you guys next week. But we're going to talk a bit about stress and how you can better manage the thoughts and the hyper arousal, that racing mind that keeps you up at night. So if my slide would change, there we go. To understand arousal, we also need to understand the nervous system. And I'm sure you guys get it, but also when I say arousal, I mean like alertness. I don't necessarily mean any other bedtime activities, but just feeling really awake when otherwise you would want to be asleep. So this can also be linked back to the nervous system. And if you're curious to learn more about this, I recommend you go back to one of the woman to woman recordings from, I think, my first ever series with you guys. But as a quick refresher of, how the nervous system works, when we encounter a stressor, our body goes into fight or flight mode. Really, the goal of our body in this case is to protect us. Our heart rate increases, our breath rate increases, our brain sends energy out to our arms and our legs, all in an effort to help us flee or fight, whatever that stressor may be. Now, this was evolved for the times when we would have been fighting off some kind of predator, an animal, a neighboring tribe, whatever it may have been. However, in modern society, that's not really necessary in the same way it used to be. Often, the things that trigger our fight or flight response are things as simple as a thought that floats into our mind and then gets every system in our body revved up, making it really hard to sleep, overriding our desire to sleep and keeping us up, at 3 a.m., whatever time it may be. So, if stressful, racing thoughts are what keep you up at night, then you'll need a twofold approach. One, you'll need a new way to respond to those thoughts. And two, you'll need physical tools to help you calm your nervous system down so that it's not in such a frenzy in the middle of the night. And that's what we're going to talk about now. So let's talk first about your thoughts. So for at night, when your thoughts are racing, the first thing I want you to start doing, and this recommendation might be met with an eye roll. I know it's very typical, but I want you to start being mindful of your thoughts, getting curious and aware of what are the things typically keeping you up at night. And with this, I really want to say nothing changes if nothing changes, right? We need to learn how to respond to our thoughts differently if we want to begin exerting control over them. So some questions that I know some of my clients and people I've worked with in the past have found helpful are things like, if you're stressing out about one thing in particular, asking, is this something I can control? The answer is, if the answer is yes, then what do you want to do about it? What's going to be your action plan? If you're up in the middle of the night ruminating on it, take a second, turn on the light, and map out a plan for how you'll handle it. See if that helps you rest a bit better afterwards because now you feel a bit more in control. If it's not something you can control, if it's completely out of your hands, you might ask yourself how you can practice acceptance, grief, or letting it go. Now, I know that that's far, far easier said than done, but it's just something to begin asking yourself. Similarly, you can ask, is this really true? Do I know this will happen? If yes, what am I going to do about it? If no, how would I react if it did happen? What would I do? What would be the response? Could I handle it? Right? Or again, how could I let it go? Can I distract myself by focusing on something else? Can I get support from someone I love? Things like that. First thing, if you're waking up consistently in the middle of the night, start tracking what the stressful thoughts are and getting curious about how you respond to them. Challenge them. The other thing I want you to keep in mind here is, how are you processing your stress during the day? Like we covered with that earlier study, there was a hyperarousal at night, but also during the daytime. If you're up at night ruminating, spiraling, right, feeling frustrated, whatever it may be, it's good to consider whether during the day you're really giving yourself time to process, because it may be that there is a lot of stress you need to think through, feel through, etc., that just isn't given time during the day. Maybe you bottle up your emotions, maybe you're just really go, 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 right? Whatever the case may be, it may almost be this like subconscious need to release your stress, to ponder your stress. And maybe your body and brain realizes the only time you'll let yourself do that is the middle of the night. So I also want you to start giving yourself time during the day to process. And now I know processing is kind of like this big floaty term. What does that really mean? It can mean a few things. It can just mean reflecting on the day's events while you're on a walk outside. Can be making plans, like I was just talking about, plans to manage your stressors. How are you going to handle them? What are you going to do? Can be spending time allowing your mind to wander without any agenda, right? It can be a lot of different things. Can also be journaling. If you aren't really good at managing your stress or feeling your emotions, you don't know where to start, buy yourself a little notebook and write a page or two, just stream of consciousness, how you're thinking and feeling. Start somewhere small and let yourself build from there. And now, like this little sweet corgi in a field of wildflowers. I was very happy to find this little video. I also want you to think about what time you're giving yourself to relax versus what time you're giving yourself to rejuvenate. Now, these are kind of arbitrary terms. You could replace them with other things, but what I'm really describing is the difference between these two things. One being the type of relaxation where you're just giving your mind a break. You're vegging out, you're watching TV, you're scrolling on social media, maybe you're mindlessly snacking. Right, these are the kinds of moments when we turn our brain off. And I want to say, these are not inherently bad. If you like doing these things, feel free. I know I watch a lot of TV. I have watched 9 seasons of Modern Family in 2 months. Not too proud to admit, but maybe I shouldn't admit that. But I do a lot of this, right? Like, it's fine. It's a normal part of life. However, we do kind of turn our brains off in these moments. If you find that you're spiraling a lot at night, it may be good to add some more rejuvenating activities into your schedule. So these are things that leave you feeling energized, at peace, maybe in control, content, things like that. I know for a lot of people, it might be yoga, going for a walk, meditation, talking with a close friend, painting, journaling. It's really going to be more personal and subjective to you. This isn't meant to just be blanket advice of meditate for 15 minutes every day. But find like what are those things that do leave you feeling less stressed and energized. Those are things I want you to add more into your day. But again, it doesn't mean you're not allowed to relax, but add in more of these. And so, any questions on any of that before we go into our last portion and talk about hypnosis? Okay, all right. So, last study for the day, talking about hypnosis and sleep. Does anyone have any questions? I heard a mumble, I think.
Yeah, me.
Yeah.
Thank you for distinguishing between relaxation and rejuvenation. I have never thought about them as being different, and they are very qualitatively different.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I know it's something I have to kind of force myself to do every once in a while, not just go into Netflix mode, but
Yeah.
God forbid I read a book or something different, just
Right.
something that'll leave you feeling better. So I'm glad that that was helpful for you, Joan. Thanks for
Thank you
sharing.
very much. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So I want to close us by talking about hypnosis. Shocker, as the hypnotist here. But a recent study from Indiana University and Baylor, they were looking at 90 postmenopausal women who regularly slept 6 hours or less. So they might not have had like a formal insomnia diagnosis, but they weren't sleeping great. And basically, for the course of 8 weeks, they were listening to hypnosis recordings daily. And now they differed in how much support they were getting from a therapist, but it wasn't necessarily therapy. It was more like check-ins and encouragement to do the hypnosis sessions from the therapist. So the one thing that was similar is they were all doing hypnosis recordings daily. And they were allowed to do them at any time of day. It wasn't even at night, just you could wake up in the morning, afternoon, etc. Here's what they found. Across all women in the study, the majority, anywhere ranging, depending on their group, from over 75 to around almost 90%, saw improvements in sleep quality and sleep duration. So there was far less poor sleep or bothersome sleep is the term that they used in this study. They had more time of sleep. And also, for the most part, the women really loved the program. They found that it was easy to follow. They were satisfied with their outcomes. And other research on sleep and hypnosis have also found that hypnosis decreases arousal, decreases that racing mind at night and just the activity of the brain at night. It increases slow wave sleep, so it increases deep sleep, and that it's a simpler, tool to implement for many people. Now, I still want you, if you're really struggling with your sleep, to consider all of these recommendations, but if you're finding it's hard to get started, start with hypnosis. Listen to these recordings a few times a week or daily. You can do it at night, you can do it when you wake up in the middle of the night, or you can just do it if you have 20 minutes in the afternoon to see how your sleep will improve over time. So, a little more on how hypnosis is theorized to support sleep. So, first, hypnosis is one of those tools that can physically relax your nervous system. If you remember, especially if you've done a variety of these sessions with me, we start out with some breathing. We start out with like a muscle relaxation exercise. All of this works to relax your nervous system and basically tell your brain, hey, there's no lion that's running after us. It's just a thought. We can calm down. We are safe. We don't need to be in this fight or flight mode. So it turns that off, goes into rest mode. Your racing thoughts are given something new to focus on, right? A lot of the hypnosis, particularly what I do, is very visualization based. Maybe you're told to imagine yourself as a corgi in a field of wildflowers, and that's probably a more amicable idea than, mind racing on all the things you have to do tomorrow at the doctor's appointment, whatever it may be. So you're given something new to focus on rather than just being told to stop thinking. And finally, your brain begins emitting waves similar to those when you are in sleep. So when we're awake, I know we covered this, I think in the series last summer, but these are different brain waves, brain oscillations, what they look like. So when you're awake, you're typically in this like high vibration, or not vibration, high frequency, faster communication kind of brainwave called beta, somewhat in alpha. When you go into hypnosis, you're in alpha and often in theta. And that's bringing you closer and closer to what your brain looks like in sleep, which is often these very slow, very large delta waves. So it really preps your brain and helps your brain remember how to get back into those slower, deeper waves for sleep. So, to sum it all up, we've covered a lot. 1, hack your circadian rhythm. Get to understand what it looks like now, take a sleep log. Then once you have that, create your regular sleep and wake times. It's going to be a regimen. It won't always be easy, but it will give your body a structure to start sleeping within. 2, manage your arousal. Use mental tools to challenge your thoughts and make sure you're giving yourself enough time in the day to process, to rejuvenate, and relax. And lastly, use hypnosis. This can help you change your thoughts and beliefs about sleep while also relaxing your nervous system, helping your body go into sleep mode. Alrighty, guys. Well, we are going to move into hypnosis. Woohoo. Alrighty. So, as always, before we begin, I like to put this on the screen for a moment. Hypnosis is not a substitute for any medical attention, for any psychiatric attention. Don't use this in replacement for anything. And really what you can expect today is to go through some relaxation techniques, some visualization exercises, and most likely to feel really relaxed and really good. And today we're going to be doing more of a hypnotic meditation. That's what we always do. It's not necessarily full hypnosis. But I always like to just share this with you guys. Don't be afraid to ask any questions if you have any. Okay, so with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So as we go through this today, a few things to keep in mind. One, I always recommend sitting in a chair or even against a wall. It's great if you can have your head and neck supported. I will give you some things to visualize. Let's say I tell you to visualize the beach. If you want to go to the mountains, go to the mountains. This is your session. You get to do whatever you'd like with it. We are going to go past 1. We'll probably go until about 1:15 is my guess. So if you know that you have to jump off or anything like that, please feel free to do so now. Come back to the recording. If you need to shift throughout the session, scratch your nose, do anything, feel free to do so. It's not going to magically take you out of the relaxation. And I'm going to leave it at that. You guys ready to get started? Great. All righty. Well, with that, let's begin. So just take a moment to get comfortable. Whenever you're ready, just close your eyes. We're just going to start with a few rounds of deep breathing. So on your next inhale, I want you to breathe in for a count of 4. Hold it at the top for 2. And exhale for 6. Good. And again, inhale for 4. Hold it at the top for 2. And exhale for 6. Good, good. Again, one last time. Inhale for a count of 4. Hold for 2. And exhale for 6. Good, good. And in your mind's eye, I'd like you to just imagine yourself in a bubble of peacefulness and serenity. Maybe you see yourself actually floating comfortably in an iridescent bubble. Maybe it's more of a soft mist around you, surrounding you with a calming, peaceful energy. You just look around you and you notice that you're in a comfortable, calming place in nature. Maybe for you, you're at your favorite beach with warm sands beneath your feet and water rushing in and out of the shoreline. Maybe for you, it's your favorite mountain range. You're sitting on a hammock, looking up at the leaves in the sky above, feeling surrounded by a sense of calm relaxation. Whatever it is for you, just notice the details of that place in your mind. As you inhale, you smell the fresh air, and as you exhale, you just start to feel your muscles relax. You start to feel yourself infuse with a sense of calm relaxation. You're able to lead yourself directly into this state of relaxation just by releasing any tension in your muscles while we're in this calming, comfortable place. So to do that, you start at the crown of your head. You just relax your eyebrows, your cheeks, your jaw. You take note of whether any muscles in your face are holding tension, and you just release that. Good. Move down your neck, releasing any tension in your neck or your throat. You feel this calming relaxation just cascade down your arms, from your upper arms to your elbows, to your forearms, all the way down to your wrists and the palms of your hands. And as this bubble of peacefulness, a soft mist surrounds you, you just feel your chest relax. Release any tension in your abdominal muscles. Good. You just allow this tranquility to move down your legs, from your thighs to your knees, to your calves, all the way out to your ankles and the bottoms of your feet. It's like any remaining tension in your body just flows out the bottoms of your feet, is absorbed by the Mother Nature beneath you. And as you look up to the sky, you notice that it's just starting to get dark as the sun begins to set. Lower, lower. And in a few moments, I'm going to count from 7 to 1. With each count, the sun will sink lower and you will feel more and more relaxed and at peace. By the count of 1, the sun will sink below the horizon and a beautiful, calming twilight evening will appear above you. The 7, just noticing the beautiful colors in the sunset. 6, feeling more and more relaxed. 5, going deeper and deeper. 4, seeing the sky slowly turn to a soft blue. 3, feeling so good. 2, totally relaxed. And 1, seeing the sun sink below the horizon, seeing a starry twilight sky above you. Good. And you can just continue to visualize yourself here in this comfortable space, smelling the fresh nighttime air, seeing the beautiful twinkling stars above you, just feeling so good, so relaxed as I continue speaking. You're now completely relaxed. You might find yourself drifting comfortably into sleep. If you need to do so, you can do so safely. You can do so now if it's the time. You just continue feeling and deepening this peaceful sense of relaxation. And you're here today to change your sleep habits. Maybe you found it difficult to fall asleep, or maybe your mind stirs in the middle of the night, keeping you awake for longer than you'd like. Regardless of what you've experienced, here today, using the power of hypnosis, we're going to use your mind to help you get deep, peaceful, uninterrupted sleep each night when you go to sleep. So in hypnosis, there's something called the law of reversed effect. Essentially, the harder we try to do something, the more elusive it becomes. This rings especially true for those who wrestle with thoughts of sleep at bedtime, only finding sleepiness to slip away despite their best efforts. Sleep is a unique state. It's natural and unique to you as an individual. Something you've done since you were a child, something your body innately learns to do. Maybe for whatever reason, it's become difficult in recent years. But today in hypnosis, these suggestions will weave into the deeper levels of your mind, gaining strength and helping you sleep better and better. As you're here in this peaceful place with the twinkling stars above, you feel yourself getting more and more relaxed. You feel your mind becoming peaceful. And you remember that when we began, you learned to gradually release tension from each muscle. This is an exercise you'll now remember to do in any moments when you're struggling with sleep. When sleep beckons, you can once again guide your body into this blissful relaxation just by relaxing one muscle at a time. Maybe you start from your toes or maybe the crown of your head. The order doesn't matter. Key is just to notice any tension and allow it to relax. Maybe you just do so now, allowing any lingering tension to release, feeling the peacefulness that gets replaced with it. You know how to do this. You'll find it easier and easier to do it on your own time and use the tool of muscle relaxation more and more often. As you just sink deeper into this gentle hypnotic rest, you again just notice the details around you. Maybe you hear soft whistling of the wind in the leaves. Maybe you see a shooting star go by in the night sky. Let your mind roam freely in this place, drifting effortlessly into a state of warm comfort. And as you're here in this comforting space, a warm, cozy mist begins to gently surround you. You notice that it almost feels like a soft cloud coming down and gently patting your arms, legs. Maybe you feel heavy, maybe you feel light. You just notice what color the soft, calming mist is. Maybe it has hues of pink, baby blue, a soft green. You notice that the color of this mist just reminds you of sleep. And as it surrounds you, you find it easy and comfortable to breathe. And just as the mist is see-through, it can come and go, as do any thoughts that might arise. And when you sleep or when you're falling asleep, if any time thoughts arise, you just allow them to dissolve in the mist. It's as easy as breathing for you to observe your thoughts and let them go. This comfortable, calming mist is here to absorb anything from the day, keeping you from sleep. And you find that you're feeling even more relaxed and at peace than you were before, so calm and ready to allow yourself to sleep whenever it is time. You notice perhaps how, as this soft, comfortable mist just envelops you in a warm, cozy feeling, maybe my voice becomes a distant murmur, blending into the tranquil haze as your body gets more and more relaxed. You feel more mentally serene in this calming place. Good. And with this experience today, realize that you know how to relax your body. Your body has been created to sleep. When you lay down in bed at night, or whenever and wherever it is that you sleep, you find it easy to close your eyes and fall asleep quickly, achieving a deep, restful sleep. Your brain is able to restore you in the nighttime, only working as hard as it needs to, so that you're able to wake up feeling rested and rejuvenated the next morning. If any thoughts come into your mind, even if they're stressful for a moment, you simply return them to this mist. You remember this warm, comforting place. You only wake up in the night if you know that you absolutely need to. You find yourself sleeping through the night more and more often. You've done so well today, and from now on, you'll effortlessly sleep into sleep whenever you absolutely need to. Your subconscious mind is wired for peaceful, serene sleep, and any time you need help sleeping, you simply remember to relax each of your muscles and surround yourself with the soft, comforting, warm mist of sleep to help you drift further and further down into a comfortable, deep slumber. And these suggestions are firmly embedded in your subconscious, growing stronger and stronger each passing moment. If the time is now for you to sleep, you can allow yourself to pass on into a comfortable nap that you'll wake up from normally as you would any other day. But if it's the time for you to open your eyes and go about the remainder of your day, feeling awake and refreshed, you'll follow my counts from 1 to 5, feeling more alert, awake, and rejuvenated with each count. The count of 5, you'll open your eyes and awaken, feeling refreshed and rejuvenated, ready to let these suggestions guide you towards better nightly sleep. So 1, just beginning to tune into your body. 2, beginning to wiggle your fingers and your toes. 3, just swaying slightly side to side. 4, just beginning to open your eyes. And 5, opening your eyes, feeling completely awake, rejuvenated, and ready to go about your day. Alrighty, guys. Take a few moments. Good morning. Good morning. I know I normally don't end by telling you you can go to sleep if you need to, but I figure if some people are going to be using this at night, I want to make sure you're given the option to go to sleep if you want. Next week, we'll be talking about dreams, the science and spirituality of dreams. So that'll be fun. We'll have a hypnosis session like today, but that'll be our final session. Don't be afraid to reach out if you have any questions. Here's my email. Otherwise, thank you guys for being here today.